Hello. Okay. Just gonna wait a second for some people to maybe arrive. Good evening. Hello. Hopefully I have my camera set up okay here. Okay, so yeah. Hi everyone. Oh, hi. Everyone's waving. Nice to see you. My name's Lee. This is my first Instagram Live, so hopefully it goes well. I have my phone in a little teetering position, so if it falls over, we'll just troubleshoot. All right, it seems like everyone's here. That's gonna be here for now. Cool. Okay, so good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm in Amsterdam, so it's evening here for me. We're gonna talk about, first of all, I am an Ayurvedic practitioner and an Ayurvedic doula and a yoga teacher. And I am currently practicing here in Amsterdam, but also doing online consultations. So if you want to work with me or anything after the chat, feel free to reach out. But today we're going to talk about hormones and hormonal balance or imbalance, depending on what's going on with your particular constitution at a given time. And I'm going to keep it very broad because hormones are a really deep and vast topic, and we could get really into it, and it can get quite complicated. So for the sake of the chat and for everybody watching and also for myself, I'm going to keep it accessible and practical so that you can hopefully walk away with a little bit more of an understanding about some hormonal things, but also hopefully some more understanding with how you can implement Ayurveda in your day-to-day to keep your hormones at a more neutral state. So I have some notes to kind of keep me on track. So if I look down, it's like just so that I don't ramble on for ages. But I think that starting off, we've all experienced some kind of hormonal shift at some point or another in our lives, whether that was puberty or whether you're a female and that is your menstrual health and experiencing hormonal shifts month to month, whether that's pregnancy or postpartum or menopause or even just day-to-day stress. That is a hormone function and a hormone shift. So I guess it's kind of good to touch upon what is a hormone. And a hormone is essentially a little chemical messenger in the body. It's secreted in one part of the body, typically a gland, and then carried by the blood to another part of the body where it will elicit a specific response. And so ultimately, hormones are helping to regulate communications between our organs, communication between tissues, and they impact almost everything. So they're impacting our digestion, our metabolism, our respiration, tissue function, sensory perception, mood, stress, growth, development, all of that good stuff. The list kind of goes on and on. And that just goes to show you all of the various processes that hormones are involved in on a day-to-day, on a moment-to-moment practice in your life. So then what does Ayurveda offer about hormones? I think the most important thing to take away right now from Ayurveda is this concept of prakriti and vikriti. So what does that mean? That is basically most Ayurvedic practitioners, their approach to understanding health and restoring balance in the body is coming from this place of, okay, what is your natural state of being? What is your prakriti? And then looking at also, what is your current state of imbalance, your vikriti? And then how can we implement lifestyle practices, diet changes, herbal protocol, yoga asana, to bring your deviation, your current state of imbalance, and match it up with the way that you're naturally meant to be. And it's so beautiful because that's our reminder right there. Like, nothing is linear. From day to day, we are shifting. From day to day, we are experiencing different imbalances in the body. And hormonal health is the same. It's not linear. It's going to deviate. And hormonal imbalances, they don't happen in a vacuum. It would be ideal if they did, because then we could easily be like, oh, well, that's the one thing, and that's how we're going to fix it. But it doesn't work that way. So Ayurveda tells us, okay, if something's going on with our hormones, then there's probably something deeper and an underlying imbalance occurring. And from that perspective, we want to get to the root cause. And I think that's why oftentimes with allopathic medicine, we go to our allopathic doctor, and it's so beautiful because they can check the levels of your hormones and check the glands and see, how everything's functioning, why, what the levels of all of the, excess or depletion are. But then you kind of walk away and you're like, okay, I have this medicine, it's going to regulate things, but that's just kind of holding steady. And where Ayurveda comes in to support your path, no matter what phase it is okay, let's get to the cause. Let's find out why this imbalance is happening in the first place. And we do that by creating more awareness. And if hormones are little messengers, then they're little messengers that are communicating between the mind and the body. And when we slow down and we invite Ayurvedic principles of awareness and diet and lifestyle into our being and into our path, then we become more aware of those messages. So, essentially, your hormonal imbalance, whatever it may be, is a reflection of a deeper imbalance that's happening from a myriad of different causes. So at the end of the day, it's not going to be a simple one-fix-all thing. I can't offer you, take this herb and all your problems are solved, or do this yoga practice, or do this pranayama breathing, because it doesn't work like that. Because what my hormonal imbalance may be, it could be the same as yours. However, we are very different individuals with different constitutions and different lifestyle practices. So our paths of wellness, our paths of bringing and restoring balance are going to be a little bit different. However, we can have very similar approaches. So I hope that what we can sort of get together and talk about today is some of those approaches. And that often just entails bringing more awareness to the body, listening to what's going on, observing how we're feeling, but also really starting to ask ourselves, what has caused our system to become so off-kilter in the first place? And then being willing to resolve whatever that is. So from a hormonal perspective, we're going today to just really focus on sex hormones and stress hormones, because ultimately it's really important to have a balance of the two. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, we talk about the gunas, the 20 opposing qualities. And our dance of healing is often looking at what those qualities are and what they're presenting, and then balancing with the opposite. And So the key often to balancing our hormones is balancing our lives. And that's why it could be quite simple, but also I don't want to simplify it to the degree of, not validating the fact that hormonal imbalance has, a great impact on our lives. So we have our sex hormones, which are typically this quality of bruhana, this building, nourishing, growth, sort of inviting quality. And they are, there are qualities of heavy and slow and cool, gross, soft, smooth. And then we have our stress hormones, which are langana. They are lightening, depleting, they're more mobile and subtle and clear. So already the two major groups in our body that most people are working with from a day-to-day are these opposing forces. So the key is balance. And I think that for practical use of how to incorporate things into your Dinacharya, your daily routine, it's kind of almost more helpful to focus on the stress. Because the stress hormones can really throw off the system. And that's because, well, we all know that stress is an epidemic, and it's harmful to the system. I think right now we can all really relate to stress in our community, stress in our individual lives, maybe from a different perspective than we've interacted with it before. But stress hormones are inherently depleting on the body, and they take our bodily reserves. So chronic stress is going to fundamentally interfere with our nutritive, balanced state of being. And that's why I think we hear a lot about, adrenal fatigue right now. We hear a lot about cortisol and burnout, and why is that? Why are those topics so prevalent? Well, our bodies are naturally equipped to deal with stress. They are physiologically formed so that if there is an incident of a stressful event from like way back when we were early humans, we had a lot of, imminent dangers occurring. So our bodies knew how to take those stressful moments and prioritize and be like, okay, this is the thing that we have to prioritize. Surviving is the priority. So everything else, digestion, nourishing the tissues, all that other stuff, it's just got to be put on hold for a minute because we have to make it out of this, circumstance. But the thing is, we're hardwired to prioritize survival, and that's a good thing. But nowadays, our survival and our stress is being triggered by, I don't want to say small things because in the moment they feel very real, but maybe not so life-threatening events like a stressful situation at work or an argument with our loved one, or your kids aren't listening to you, or someone cuts you off in traffic. All of those things, they elicit a stress response in the body. And then the stress hormones, the very depleting, lightening hormones, they come in and they take over the system, which is a good thing because then everything in our body reacts and it's like, okay, here we go. We got to be on. But over time, as that mechanism continues, then we can begin to deplete the amount of stress hormones that we have that we actually need. And then, because the body is so equipped to deal with stress, there's a mechanism for when that depletion starts. And that mechanism is, okay, so I'm going to take other reserves because my priority is survival. So if your priority is survival, then our body's going to prioritize the stress hormones. So what does that mean? that basically means that if your body is stressed out and it needs more stress hormones to protect itself effectively, then your body will make it, but it will turn to your sex hormones, your more nutritive hormones, and it will take them and it will turn them into cortisol. And so that's when we kind of get into a problem. And I have so many clients, a lot of them are women, and they come to me and they're like, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating all the right foods. I'm practicing yoga every day. I am, doing everything that's quote unquote healthy, but I have this stubborn stomach, belly fat, and it won't go away. Why is that? And that's because I think when your cortisol levels are just, through the roof, your body is constantly in this state of stress, then your body's prioritizing survival. So what happens? Your body's like, I'm going to hold on to these fat reserves. And where is it going to hold on to it? In the most important place, your reproductive zone. So this belly area that is like so stubborn on so many people, it's mostly because we're in a state of stress and our bodies are like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this fat because I'm probably going to need it for later. I'm going to hold on to it where I'm going to need it the most, in my most vulnerable areas. And then I'm also going to take from our nutritive sex hormones like progesterone, and I'm going to take that juicy, nourishing stuff, and I'm going to turn it into more stress hormones. So what happens? Then we have not only excess stress, but then our nutritive sex hormones are going to deplete. So we have a stress hormone imbalance and a sex hormone imbalance all happening. But it's all happening at the hands of something that is kind of happening day to day, which are these little stressful moments. So I think it comes down to this really simple concept at the end of the day, which one of my great teachers, Claudia Welsh, she wrote this book, which please, if you're interested in this talk, go buy her book. It's called Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. And she goes really deep into this stuff. But what she essentially says is that hormones will come into balance when your life comes into balance. And so that really is talking about establishing a routine, establishing a strong dinacharya so that our bodies know what to expect. We raise our kids, and I was raised this way as a child too, you have a schedule. You wake up at the same time. You have breakfast, you have your activities, you eat lunch at the same time, you have more activities, you eat dinner at the same time, and you go to bed at the same time. And that happens for a reason, because as parents, we intuitively know that our children are going to grow up to be these really amazing little proficient humans if they, have a structure, have a routine, because their minds and their bodies thrive on that. But then somewhere along the way, we forget that as adults and we don't implement those same practices. So having a routine and creating some kind of schedule in which our body knows what to expect, because if we're in a stressful state, if we have more stress hormones pulsing through our body, then the body's already on edge a little bit. And so if it has no idea when we're going to wake up, no idea when we're going to sleep, no idea when we're going to eat, then it's also going to be like, I don't know what to expect, which increases, more stress. So already just establishing some practices of regularity doesn't mean you have to be rigid. It just means, okay, can you carve out little moments in your life where you make sacred space? And I like to view it as nothing more than implementing self-care practices to promote balance. And so having a consistent routine of some kind, whether that's, okay, I wake up in the morning, I scrape my tongue, and I have a glass of warm water with some lemon or some ginger, And then I sit and I consciously breathe for 5 minutes. That in itself, you don't have to be, anybody's hero to have a morning routine. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour asana practice. It doesn't have to be, a run. In fact, sometimes resting is more rejuvenative and better for our systems if we're experiencing hormonal balance than excessive exercise. So, establishing a routine for ourselves so our bodies don't have to live on edge and they know, like, okay, she's going to wake up around this time, and then I can expect her to eat breakfast, and I don't have to stress about where my reserves are coming from or what's going to happen. It's just naturally in the flow. My cells know what's happening. My digestion knows what's happening. And then the hormones will also naturally come into balance as you bring your life into balance. And so if stress, we talked about the qualities of the stress hormones and the sex hormones. And if stress and stress hormones are inherently depleting in nature, then in Ayurveda, we, for the most part, like to balance with opposites. So the solution is to then shower ourselves with building and nourishing and rejuvenating activities and foods, and lifestyle practices and herbs. And that doesn't mean all of a sudden you have to live the most Ayurvedic lifestyle. It just means, like I said, eating at regular times. That's a huge one. And eating for your constitution and keeping your digestion strong. So Ayurveda typically will say that all diseases and all imbalances come from poor digestion. So they all begin with Agni, our digestive fire. So keeping our digestive fire strong is that's the number one thing for every imbalance. It all starts there. So that's, knowing how to eat for our constitution, knowing how to eat for our imbalance, knowing how to eat with the seasons. If you don't know how to do that, then it's, simple to reach out to an Ayurvedic practitioner for a little bit of guidance. But you can always just start with eating what's fresh and locally available based on the season. So what's growing in that place that you live? That's a pretty good indicator of probably the things that your body will naturally be taking on and digesting with ease, for the most part. And then also we want to make sure that we're supporting all of our digestive processes, meaning our elimination, because buildup of toxins, ama is what we call it, that will inhibit our hormone function. Because if our cells are coated in this, little film of ick, then they're not going to get the message. They're not going to be receptive of the hormones that are trying to come and be like, here I am. So keeping the digestive tract clean, number one, really important thing. And then in that vein, making sure that we're supporting the liver, and doing so by eating healthy fats and healthy oils and incorporating ghee, because we need cholesterol. We need good cholesterol to make our sex hormones. Our sex hormones are going to be, a lot of them, produced via cholesterol through the liver. So if our liver's struggling, if we're drinking too much, or if we are, not supporting ourselves by eating too many fried or bad oily foods, fried foods that our liver's really overloaded, it's going to have a hard time producing the appropriate amount of cholesterol and hormones that we need, but also getting rid of the bad guys that we don't need. So there's that. But then also in terms of balancing stress, we want to think about, so we want to shift the body clock to support what's practical for your stress response. So I have a lot of clients who will be like, okay, but at lunchtime, that's my busiest time of day. My boss is requiring XYZ by 2:30 meeting, or I have so many things by the afternoon. So then, even though Ayurveda says, hey, lunch should be your biggest meal, if you know that every single day at lunchtime you're stressed out, then don't make lunch your biggest meal of the day, because those emotions, it's not just, how we eat or what we eat, it's also the emotions that are present while we are eating. So if you're very stressed out at lunch, you're going to be stressed out, your body's going to be stressed out, you're not going to digest. So make breakfast your biggest meal of the day. And then that meal will carry with you through the day. And that's just like a really simple way to shift your body's clock to support what's practical for you. Because that's what your Dinacharya should be. That's what your daily routine should be. It should be a practical solution to what supports you, where you are, how you are, and when you need it. And then stress management. So thinking about your emotional bounce back. If a stressful event happens, how are you bouncing back from that? How are you bouncing back, in different, if you're a woman, in different areas of your cycle when certain hormones raise and that elicits more anxiety or more fear? What's your emotional bounce back from that? How are you absorbing it? What are your ways of processing and responding to those things? And making sure that you have in your little tool belt some relaxation processes or practices that nourish you. And that doesn't mean, every day you have to take some luxurious bath or, get a massage, but making sure that at least every day taking some time for yourself that feels for yourself. So perhaps that's just taking an unrushed shower, or maybe that is taking 5 minutes to sit quietly, or practicing 5 minutes outside in nature, taking a walk. Just one thing every single day that you consciously are doing to nourish yourself, to bring your body back into that parasympathetic mode. And then also if we're bringing all of these things into our awareness, then bringing into awareness your balance of work life and your balance of home life, but your balance of self-care. So many times we're balancing home, we're balancing work, but we're not prioritizing any self-care. So even just having the thought is the first step, I think. And then taking it beyond the basics. So if you have a pretty, good Dinacharya, you wake up and you have your lifestyle practices, you scrape your tongue, have warm water, do your meditation, and then eat breakfast. That's beautiful already as it is. But going beyond that, how can we really support this stress response? And we could do that by adding the Bruhana inspiring practices to our Dinacharya. So Bruhana being that building, nourishing quality to balance the Lungana, the stressful quality. And that's going to be practices like Abhyanga, self-oil massage. And Maui has beautiful body oils, massage oils that are for your dosha, and you can purchase one of those, or you can, use sesame or sunflower as tridoshic, and you warm your oil. And the skin is our largest organ, which is crazy, but also so wild to think about all of the things that it's absorbing at a constant rate during the day. So also keeping in mind what products you're putting on your skin, and are they endocrine disruptive, and keeping everything really clean. But so for your Dinacharya, incorporating Abhyanga and using a nourishing oil to do that practice. And if you're a woman, incorporating breast health, so doing a breast massage and bringing that quality of nourishment. The word in Sanskrit for oil is sneha, and that word also means love. So we're not only anointing the body with oil, but we're anointing the body with love. And this is a practice where you can do it every day, you can do it just on the weekends, you can do it a couple times a week, but you'll essentially, you'll warm your oil, begin at the extremities, and give yourself a massage using long strokes on the long bones, round strokes on the joints, breast massage if you're a woman, abdominal massage. We have so many nerve receptors in our abdomen, so many hormones, and the gut-brain connection is so huge. So giving that space, the nourishment, and then sitting with that oil and letting it penetrate through the 7 layers of the skin, get deep and nourish all of our tissues is so beautiful. And then another thing you can do is nourish your Rasa Dhatu. So Rasa is the first tissue that we create. It's the lymphatic tissue, and it's our circulator of a lot of these hormones. So keeping Rasa clean, open, flowing, not stagnant is really beautiful. And you can do that by incorporating tulsi tea or a ginger tea or a lemongrass tea, depending on your dosha and the season. Also, dates are so super grounding and nourishing to Rasa. So maybe in the morning, after you do your Abhyanga practice, you have a ginger tea or a lemongrass tea or a tulsi tea. And then having a wind down. So we get home often from work, we make dinner, we look at the TV, we look at our phones, and then we try to go to sleep and turn off. And the body is already in this overstimulated zone. And so what will happen is it's going to have a hard time turning off. And when it does turn off, it's going to do its processes in a stressful state overnight. So having some kind of practice in your Dinacharya to wind down. One of my favorite things to do is put my legs up the wall. So I put my legs up the wall and I lay and I have my hands on my abdomen and I lay like that for 5 minutes. And that's really beautiful also for the Rasa Dhatu, the lymphatic tissue. It helps drain everything. It helps to ground us. We have our sacrum that's pressing into the ground, where Vata lives, and Vata is, or one of the home sites of Vata is in the sacrum, and it's just really at this point so beautiful to have that drainage, have that grounding nature. So give yourself a wind down, practice, try a yoga nidra out, do a body scan, really try to root in and turn off. And then essential oils. So in Ayurveda, we typically use essential oils for a lot of our body work, a lot of our body therapies, but I'm a big fan of using them a little bit, in our day-to-day. So you can diffuse, and so for feminine sex hormones or, our sex hormones in general, you can use clary sage or geranium or jasmine or rose. And then if you need more emotional support, you can diffuse rose. It's really good for releasing stagnant and holding emotions. Sandalwood is super cooling and beautiful and very calming if you have more heat, more aggravation in the system. And then for overactive stress, for this cortisol that, is causing us all to kind of be on edge in fight or flight, bergamot is very lovely, and frankincense and lavender. So using essential oils to diffuse in your home, finding ways to incorporate them throughout the day perhaps is also a really beautiful thing to add into your Dinacharya. And maybe if you have a specific time, that's what I do. I'm okay, I at a specific time, I have a 3-minute little ritual in the afternoon where I sit down and I put some essential oils on my wrist and I rub it together, and then I take a big inhale and I take a few deep belly breaths, and that's it. And that may not seem like a lot, but my body knows that that's my thing. That's what we do. It's something it can count on. And it really appreciates that, I think. And then the last thing that I will advise about is a pranayama, and it's called Nadi Shodhana. And Claudia Welsh, the woman who I was talking about, who wrote the book, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, she really promotes this as this breathing technique to be one of the most beautiful practices for balancing all of our hormones and really restoring wellness in the system. And from an Ayurvedic approach, balancing hormones, like I said, is really about balancing your life. So we can't think about it as, I have a thyroid problem, that's the one thing I have to do, or I have an estrogen imbalance, that's the one thing I have to do. It's a deeper thing, and it is this holistic package. You are a being with so many levels and so much nuance. So your healing and your path will really be reflected on all of your lifestyle practices, and then those things that you want to target will ease up as a result. But this breath is called Nadi Shodhana. I'll just demonstrate it for a second, and you can look it up. I think Banyan Botanicals and a couple other websites online have really easy how-to thing. But essentially you will make Vishnu Mudra, so you'll fold in your first two fingers, and then you'll keep these guys together. For a lot of people that feel a little uncomfortable, so you can either make a kickstand with the pinky, or do this kind of hang loose variation. And then essentially what you'll do is you will sit quietly, comfortably, and take a couple of inhales and exhales in through the nose and out through the nose. And then you'll begin by blocking off the right nostril and inhaling through the left. At the top of the inhale, you'll block the left nostril and exhale through the right. At the bottom of the exhale, inhaling right, blocking it off, and exhaling left. So that's just one round. And it goes up and down and up and down. And it's this balancing act of the two sides of the body, the masculine and the feminine, the analytical and the creative. And it's the balancing act of all of those bruhana, sex hormones, and langana, stress hormones. So it's the balancing of the gunas, the balancing of the doshas, the balancing of the cool and the hot and the light and the heavy. And implementing this into your daily routine for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it can make such a beautiful impact on inviting the body to come back into a parasympathetic mode, taking back its power of groundedness, returning to the body, returning to this moment. So I really like to invite you to practice it for 3 minutes, then the next day maybe practice it for 4 minutes and build up and see how much you can build your practice up, and see if you could get to 15 minutes and what that invites. And where you put that into your Dinacharya, like I said, that's up to you. It should feel good. None of these practices should feel like, I have to do this, check. I have to do this, check. It should be, I want to do this because it inspires such beauty to come from my mind and my body. And then, just seeing what all that creates. So if you guys have any questions, I don't want to talk for too long. I just realized I've already been kind of going for a while, so I want to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So I'm going to scroll. I think maybe there were a couple of questions, but okay. So I noticed in summer my digestion is slower. Well, okay, so that's kind of a nuanced question. Perhaps during the summertime, depending on where you live, if it's really, really hot, then a lot of people's digestion will actually fire up, depending on how we're feeding it. But if you keep feeding your digestion the way that you did all winter with warming, nourishing, grounding foods, then the digestion is going to be whoa, you have to slow down, lighten it up. I can't process all of these things with all of this heat from all areas. So try, if you're eating a heavier meal still, heavier diet from winter, as we're in summertime, then definitely try to lighten it up a little. Okay, so hibiscus and sage, what are the benefits of tongue scraping first thing in the morning? Okay, I could talk about tongue scraping forever, but benefits of tongue scraping first thing in the morning. So the tongue is actually a map of our inner digestive organs. All the things that are happening inside our body can be reflected on the tongue. So when we wake up in the morning, we gently scrape the tongue, not only to remove any excess toxins that have built up overnight, but also to gently stimulate the GI tract and awaken it in a really nice way, to be like, hello, we're waking up now and it's time to get going. But the most beautiful thing I think about the tongue scraping is that it invites this awareness around our food and our body and how we're processing food. So like, if you wake up in the morning and you scrape your tongue and you have a thicker coating, you can think, oh wow, my body's letting me know whatever I ate yesterday, I'm not processing it that well. And then you can learn from that. So it brings this beautiful awareness to how you're eating, how you're digesting, and you get to create a relationship of mindfulness around your food and the way that your body processes that food or doesn't process that food. So that's my very brief tongue scraping spiel. So then how, so true, okay. Hi, okay. Oh, okay, so about the stubborn belly fat with the cortisol, how does one alleviate and move some of that? So that's kind of a nuanced question, and it will definitely depend on your constitution. It'll depend on how you're eating, how you're exercising, the whole package. But I can say that by, first of all, decreasing your stress response, that's going to be a big one. So if you have high levels of cortisol that are the reason for that stubborn belly fat, incorporating some practices to decrease that stress are going to be huge. You can also try, depending on your constitution, in the morning, first thing after scraping your tongue, if you are over like the weight that you feel is comfortable and you don't have too high of pitta, you can have a glass of warm water with 10 drops of apple cider vinegar and a small teaspoon of honey, or half a teaspoon of honey. And that's a really good way to stoke the metabolism, cleanse the body, get kapha, rubbed up. And then also dry brushing. If your vata is not too high, I think that a little bit of, dry brushing to stimulate ourselves, to stimulate those fat reserves, to get little extra love, that can be totally helpful. Okay. Did I cover menopause? Hi, Karen. I did not really touch on menopause in too much great detail. I can say that the Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, is beautiful for a lot of menopausal symptoms. If you're experiencing hot flashes, definitely support the liver. And rose water is going to be a really good friend for that as well. If you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to me on my page. What do we do if we're suffering from irregular periods and have PCOS? So PCOS is pretty common nowadays with a lot of women. It is a hormonal imbalance. It's typically higher levels of those androgynous hormones. Primrose oil is really helpful for PCOS. A kapha balancing diet is typically promoted. Like I said, though, it's hard. Ayurveda It's not like this, oh, here, just do this. It really depends on your diet, your lifestyle, your constitution, your prakriti. So please feel free to reach out to me if you need any more guidance. Okay, I think that is all. I think I answered everybody's questions that I saw. It was so lovely to talk with all of you. If you have more questions, please feel free to come to my page. I'm actually offering this entire month. First consultations are completely donation based, so whatever is in your means to donate. I realize with COVID, everything is difficult and everyone is navigating that in their own way. So I just wanted to be there to offer my service, and so whatever you can offer is really beautiful. And if not, then it's been lovely to sit here and chat with you all, and thank you for holding the space, and thank you, Molly. This has been lovely, and your products are wonderful. So also, if you're following this and you haven't bought anything or tried out the beautiful things that they have, definitely do that now or in the future. And have a happy evening.